It's just past 9 in Ukraine. It's Friday morning, and here are the latest news updates from TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with all the most important news. 19,000 people have been left without electricity in the Kirovohrad region. The Russians have struck energy infrastructure facilities. The State Emergency Service reports fires at several locations. So far, there have been no reports of casualties. Last night, Russia attacked Ukraine with strike drones, ballistic missiles, and guided aerial bombs. Explosions were heard in Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk regions, and on the outskirts of Mykolaiv. Kherson region is under enemy shelling. As a result of artillery strikes on the regional center, a man and a woman were killed. 2 more city residents have been hospitalized with injuries. 2 drivers of civilian vehicles were also injured when Russians dropped explosives from drones onto their cars. And in Bilozerka, after another shelling with artillery, a local resident sustained injuries incompatible with life. In the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Russians targeted apartment buildings in the Nikopol district. As a result of the enemy shelling, 4 private houses, a kindergarten, a swimming pool, an agricultural enterprise, and a shop were damaged. In the Pavlohrad district, infrastructure was damaged. In Sinelnikov district, a house burned down. In Kryvyi district, a gas station and a car were hit. In Zaporizhzhia, a rescuer suffered a mine explosive injury and a shoulder wound. The occupiers struck a state emergency service unit with a drone while they were extinguishing a fire in Orikiv. Energy workers are urging people to save electricity and asking them not to turn on several powerful appliances at the same time so as not to overload the system. This will help restore the system to normal operation as quickly as possible. Power outage schedules have been introduced due to Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The day before, restrictions were in effect in 12 regions, and in Kharkiv and Chernihiv regions, the outages were emergency ones. Meanwhile, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been brought out of a complete blackout mode. Now, repair crews managed to fix the line connecting the occupied nuclear power plant to the Ukrainian power grid. For a month, the occupiers did not allow our energy workers near the power line supports, thereby putting the nuclear and radiation safety of all of Europe at risk. Russia's energy sector feels confident, although there will be some losses. This is how the Kremlin dictator Putin responded to the new sanctions against Russia. The day before, the US imposed sanctions against Russian oil giants Rosneft, Lukoil, as well as 34 of their subsidiaries. The US Treasury Department's website states that these restrictions are the result of Russia's lack of seriousness about a peaceful resolution to the war with Ukraine. Therefore, Washington is making efforts to reduce Russian oil revenues, which the Kremlin spends on the war. US President Donald Trump expressed hope that the sanctions would push Moscow toward negotiations.
Today is a very important day in terms of what we are doing. Look, these are huge sanctions. They are very important. They are targeted against 2 of their major oil companies, and we hope they won't last long. We hope that the war will be resolved. This is our response to the various types of missiles and everything else that we are witnessing. But we don't think this will continue to be necessary. We would like them to simply stick to the front line, which has been forming for quite a long time, and go home.
Putin, for his part, stated that pressure from the US will not force Russia to change its position on ending the war in Ukraine. The remote war of words did not end there. In response to Putin's claim about the Russian economy's immunity to sanctions, Trump remarked, "We'll see in 6 months." Reuters reports that Chinese state-owned companies are already suspending purchases of Russian oil in response to sanctions against Lukoil and Rosneft. How to help Ukraine with frozen Russian funds? European leaders discussed this issue in Brussels. President Zelensky also attended the summit. Before the start of the meeting, the Prime Minister of Belgium, the country where a significant portion of Russian assets is held, publicly voiced his concerns about the reparations loan that could be granted to Kyiv with Russian money as collateral. Brussels wants the legal risks to be fully shared among the member states. In this way, Belgium wants to protect itself from massive lawsuits over the use of Russian assets. The second demand is guarantees. In case the money has to be returned, Belgium expects that every country will contribute. As a third point, Brussels insists on similar steps from other countries where Russian assets are frozen. The EU's chief diplomat stated that she understands Belgium's concerns. She added that she is not opposed to developing a mechanism by which Belgium would have these assurances. Meanwhile, the president of Ukraine, in a brief statement to the press before the meeting, thanked the allies for the restrictions against the aggressor country. This
decision on the 19th package of sanctions is important for us. Thank you very much. It goes hand in hand with yesterday's decision by President Trump on the sanctions package for the energy sector, which we have been waiting for. God willing, it will work. We need not only to defend ourselves together with all of Europe and the United States, we also need to put pressure on Putin together to make him stop this war. Pressure means sanction packages, long-range weapons, air defense, and of course financial support, which we will be discussing together today.
fighters of the 118th Brigade showed one of the enemy's failed raids. The occupiers tried to hide in the center of Mala Tokmashka in Zaporizhzhia in residential houses. But they came under the precise fire of a Ukrainian tank. Then the enemy positions were finally destroyed by a missile strike. According to the American Institute for the Study of War, the occupiers are suffering significant losses in the Zaporizhzhia direction, as well as near Kupiansk and Kostiantynivka. The largest number of attacks, according to the General Staff, is in the Pokrovsk direction, where the enemy tried to put pressure on Ukrainian positions. However, so far no significant advances have been recorded there. According to the analytical resource Deep State, the Russians have become more active near Lyman. Due to insufficient density of Ukrainian defensive lines in this area, enemy incursions are being stopped by drone operators themselves, Deep State notes. TSN expresses its condolences to the families of the fallen journalists Alyona Hramova and Yevhen Karmazin. The day before, an enemy drone took the lives of a correspondent and a cameraman from the Freedom TV channel who, since the very first days of the full-scale invasion, had been reporting on the situation in Donetsk region, its defenders, the evacuation of people, and the crimes of the enemy. Police reported that Alyona and Yevhen were filming a gas station in the center of Kramatorsk, which had been attacked by the occupiers the day before. An enemy drone struck their car. The issue of Tomahawks for Ukraine has been postponed. U.S. President Donald Trump assured that only Americans can launch them, since the training process for Ukrainian soldiers will take from 6 months to a year. Similar arguments were previously made by the Joe Biden administration, but at that time it was about Patriot air defense systems and F-16 fighter jets, which were eventually supplied to Kyiv. Last Friday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky came to Washington to discuss the issue of Tomahawks. But in the end, Trump made it clear that he is not in a hurry to provide the Tomahawks.
The problem with Tomahawks, which many people don't know about, is that it takes at least 6 months, usually a year, to learn how to use them. They are very complicated. So the only way to launch a Tomahawk is if we launch it ourselves, and we are not going to do that. With Tomahawks, you need a lengthy training course. It's a very powerful, very precise weapon, and perhaps that's exactly what makes it so complicated. But it takes a year. It takes a year of intensive training to learn how to use it. We know how to use it, and we are not going to teach other people how to do it. That would take too long.
You are watching TSN News. Don't forget to leave your comments. Your opinion is very important to us. Then I continue with the broadcast. An arson ordered by Wagner. In the United Kingdom, 6 men are being sentenced for conspiring with a Russian terrorist organization. On its orders, the accused tried to set fire to the building of a company that supplied Starlinks to Ukraine. The fire occurred last year. The leader of the group pleaded guilty. During the trial, the jury was shown evidence from surveillance cameras and a video recorded on the phone by one of the group members, as well as correspondence with the recruiter. Therefore, prosecutors were convinced that the group knowingly acted on the orders of the Wagnerites. The Russian embassy in London denies any involvement in this fire. An arsenal for sale. In Dnipro, 4 men who were selling weapons and ammunition were detained. In just one stash set up in a private yard, they found explosives, assault rifles, pistols, grenade launchers, silencers, grenades, and over 14,000 rounds of ammunition. Law enforcement is currently investigating who supplied the goods. They are also identifying the buyers, while those detained face up to 7 years in prison. Wild drones. The first drone races in Ukraine, held under conditions close to those on the front lines, took place in Kamyanets-Podilsky, Khmelnytskyi region. 24 teams from combat brigades of the defense forces took part in the competition. TSN correspondent Svetlana Pavuk reports on the pilots' lightning-fast reactions and strategic thinking.
They are all combat drone operators, but here, for 2 days, they became passionate athletes. I'm Tagan! I'm Tagan! This is what joy from victory looks like, even though they reached it by shutting off their emotions.
Pilot's work always requires a cool head. That means not giving in to excitement or euphoria, just a cool head and good technique.
They honed their skills on the front line.
Completely different tasks. Like being an FPV pilot, a kamikaze, and a bomber pilot.
And at this competition, they had to show everything as a whole. The fastest FPV drone, the most agile, the best reconnaissance, and the most accurate heavy bomber.
So that in the end their fingers wouldn't falter. This is an important thing. You have to control to endure. A tremendous amount of moral and psychological preparation is needed.
The tasks for the pilots were created at the highest level of difficulty.
These are sports competitions, in fact. It's just a bit of a specific sport, so to speak. There are regulations, rules for passing and obstacles, and every time we try to add something new to make it more interesting. That is, the tracks are built from scratch. In a few days, the team arrives and builds the track from the ground up, and then others arrive. The participants then have the opportunity to do a test flight, and the competitions are held.
All the teams have a high level of training because they gained it in the war, notes the chief judge of the competition.
All the guys came from combat zones. These are not rear line service personnel. These are all guys who are combat pilots. And they didn't have much time to prepare because they are constantly on combat duty right on the front line. That's why the competition is not only purely technical in nature, but it also thoroughly tests and evaluates how quickly and efficiently the guys or participants can solve and address a wide variety of different issues and unexpected challenges that may arise during the process.
Instead of championship trophies, the winning teams receive vampire drones, which they can use in their units to fight the enemy. But the most important reward for them is this. It's the chance to forget about the war for a few days and relax among fellow pilot brothers from other combat brigades. Svetlana Pavuk, Vitaly Pavuk, Khmelnytskyi, TSN 1+1.
The rains won't let us enjoy the warmth. Warm weather has finally arrived in Ukraine. The temperature increase was recorded as early as yesterday. And today the thermometers will climb even higher. Up to +15, and in the south, even up to +19 degrees. However, we won't be able to fully enjoy the warmth. At the end of the week, rain and thunderstorms will get in the way. It will pour in the south, east, west, and center. Only some northern regions will remain dry. That's all for now. But Friday is just beginning. The TSN team will keep track of all the most important and relevant news. So don't miss our upcoming broadcasts. And that's why we're reminding you to hit the notification bell. And also subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Have a great Friday and end of the work week.